Paul in England who says that prayer is being strawmanned by atheists. How you doing, Paul? You're on with Dave and Matt.
Oh, hello, Dave and Matt. I'm doing very well. How about yourselves?
Doing well.
Great.
Too. So which atheists are strawmanning prayer, and why? And what do we need to say about it?
Sure. Okay, so I've heard prayer being spoken of on the show several times, and it seems to be kind of represented as like wish granting from a sky genie.
No, I've never, ever in my fucking life seriously presented prayer as if it's wish granting from a genie. In fact, I've corrected countless atheists about that. So you haven't heard that on the show from me.
Okay.
Or if you have,
fair enough.
Correct.
And
however, I find it curious because of the things that are potentially prayer granting. What's the phrase? Wish granting. The Bible does say that whatever two or more of you are gathered together in my name, whatever you ask for, I will grant. That's in the Bible, correct?
I've heard this. Yes.
Yeah, but have you read it? Have you bothered to? You've heard this. So you've read it?
Uh-huh.
So you know that the Bible says that whenever two or more of you are gathered together in my name, whatever you ask, I shall do, right?
Unlike yourself, I've yet to actually read the Bible cover to cover. I've done so with the God Delusion at least twice, but not with the Bible. I've read several passages and obviously had things, taught to me from it, etc., as well. But yeah, I've heard this thing. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm aware that it's in the Bible, but it says that.
So it's in the Bible a couple different times, but Mark 11 is probably the easiest one. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours, which isn't quite the same as I'm actually going to grant it. But while I agree with you, and I don't present prayer as if it's a wish granting service, the Bible actually advocates for the notion that it could be viewed fairly as something like that. So if you're going to call in and suggest that atheists are strawmanning prayer, it would be useful if you didn't start by something that I'm not supporting of and something that isn't, that isn't consistent with the Bible. Because if the Bible says, hey, whatever you guys ask for, I'll grant, that's pretty much wish fulfillment.
Yeah, can I chime in here, Matt? So in my experience as a minister, and I was a minister for 10 years, I would say a good majority of prayers that I would often hear, particularly the casual ones, had something to do with God's protection. So maybe not wish granting, but keep us safe, keep us from harm, protect us. And I think some of that goes to the previous caller's story about baptism. I think there's some magical thinking tied into baptism along with other religious rites. But I would say that I found, and I write about this in my book, that for some, not necessarily majority, but for some people, religion is a life insurance policy, a protection against what happens after we die, and for some, protection for what happens in this life. So I that was, my experience as minister for 8 years.
Hello?
Do we lose the call?
Oh, we're waiting on Paul.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
So what are we going to correct, Paul?
I'm still here. I hope you can still hear me. No, I do totally agree with you that wish granting is Bible verses that you mentioned, that it does say, what you ask for, you will receive.
So then how can you possibly fault atheists for representing it that way?
The gratitude, I feel that the gratitude area is being overlooked. For example, prayers of thanks.
Paul?
It's important, I believe,
Paul?
to cultivate. Hello?
Paul?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we're in agreement
Yes.
that the Bible supports that notion, how can you possibly criticize atheists? How can you possibly say that atheists are strawmanning prayer as one? Hang on, let me finish the question. How can you say that atheists are strawmanning prayer while acknowledging that the very thing you were objecting to is in the Bible. So clearly atheists aren't strawmanning. And now your objection is that, well, they're just not talking as much about the thanks part of it. And the reason for that is atheists don't think there's a God. I don't think there's any one to give thanks to. I don't think a God's done anything for me to be thankful for. And so while I appreciate the fact that when I was a Christian and I prayed to give thanks, and plenty of other Christians pray to give thanks, simply pointing out that there's one version of prayer that you don't object to is in no way suggests that atheists were wrong or that people were straw manning or that the other views of prayer aren't true. So what's your point?
Well, when you put it that way, it makes me seem like I don't have one.
Okay.
Matt, let me respond to the prayers of thanksgiving. So I actually address this in my book. Okay, so let's assume there is some God responsible for the good, and you want to give that God thanks. When are you going to have a WTF prayer and say, "Hey God, how about the shit that is happening?" You kind of let God off the hook. It's like a game of heads I win, tails you lose. When all you do is thank God and thank God, and assuming you believe in a God, where are your prayers that hold God accountable? This same God accountable for the bad stuff. Seems like God kind of gets off pretty easy there. And there's a wonderful scene in the Book of Mormon, a wonderful musical song, Hasadiga Ibawai. And I won't give the play away, but it's where the Ugandans utter a WTF prayer. It's very crude, but it's to my point about, okay, if you're gonna ascribe good, or give thanks to this God for good things, what are you going to do with the bad things? Because you can't just let them off the hook if that's your view of God.
I think my belief is that prayer can be effective with or without a divine presence to hear it, in that there is power in positive thinking and in programming the subconscious. So when you focus on things like gratitude and things like putting your priorities in sense of order of the things that you want, and you're asking for certain strengths and positive inner qualities rather than some kind of wish that you want to be fulfilled, I think that there's a power in that's perhaps psychological rather than theological, if that makes any sense. Hello?
So one of the things is I find that one of the most disgusting things ever, because essentially what you're suggesting is that the people who are impoverished and starving and dying, who've been begging a God to intervene for ages, just aren't grateful enough.
Oh, no. I don't believe I'm suggesting that at all.
Yes, you are, because this whole power of positive thinking, hang on, Paul. The power of positive thinking is bullshit. It does not work. You can think positively all you like and still have an absolutely miserable life, and it doesn't make it your fault. The power of positive thinking is a myth. It is a deepity. To the extent that it's true, it's trivial in the sense of, oh, I'm going to be nice to people and they're probably going to be nice to me back. But to the extent that it's significant, it is in fact false. You can think positively all you like, and you're not going to get any result from positive thinking alone.
Agreed.
Okay, so
action is also required, and perhaps a bit of luck, perhaps a bit of cooperation from others, and
perhaps even after thinking positively, one still has all the work left to do towards that goal.
I wouldn't say all the work. I think that's a little hyperbolic, but I see where you're going.
I don't see how it's hyperbolic at all, because thinking positively is just me saying, oh, I can do this. I still have to do all the work.
Creating a good mindset.
No, but a good mindset, you've already acknowledged, is no guarantee of success or change.
I didn't say it was a guarantee. I just said it was part of the journey.
But it may not be. I can sit here and be negative Nancy, and if I still take the steps towards a goal, I'm gonna achieve that goal. It's the steps toward the goal that matter, not my attitude. I could sit here all day long and say, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way this is going to work. I'm going to keep doing it. I've been doing it for 15 years. I've been talking till I'm blue in the face. There's no way it's going to work. I'm definitely not going to change Paul's mind. There's no way I'm going to change Paul's mind. But if I keep having the conversation, I may in fact still change Paul's mind, correct? Correct.
Paul? Bueller?
Evidently, I'm not going to change Paul's mind. So we'll move on to somebody else. That's kind of disappointing, because the truth is, if I take all the steps of arguing honestly, I may well change Paul's mind. I may not. But it's not necessarily contingent on whether or not I have a positive thought about this. That takes place at a meta level. It's like, hey, I'm going to sit down and I love to play chess. I'm not great, but I love to play, and I love to play Bullet and Blitz. And so I could sit down at a chessboard with somebody, and I know what their rating is. Like for the other night, I played somebody who was like 2,300, and the game automatically spotted me an entire queen. And yet still, I looked at it and said, this is probably going to be a loss. I went into it thinking it was going to be a loss. And you know what? It was. Now, was it my negative thinking that made me lose? Or was it the fact that I blundered a piece because I am not as good as the person I'm opposed to? I could have also gone into it thinking, I'll win. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it gave me a queen. That's way too much. I'll win, and still have lost. While I appreciate the fact that positive thoughts can change your outlook and maybe encourage you to take the steps towards a goal more, it's the steps towards the goal that matter.
Yeah, and Matt, to that point, as you were saying earlier, first of all, the power of positive thinking is not in the Bible. It's not a Bible verse. Number two, it doesn't presuppose a God. You can think positively as an atheist or as an agnostic. It's a religiously neutral idea. But to your point, when you're living in a third world shithole country and you're struggling to feed yourself and your family, just thinking positively is not going to bring food to the table, and even praying is not going to do that. You're in a very horrible situation.
Yep. And just for fun, somebody in chat decided to say they've seen my games online and I'm not good. Well, if I've already acknowledged that I'm not good, then you're just being a dick. So I'll time you out and we'll move on.